righty. You know, Tony, the best thing about running your own platform is you can do whatever the hell you want at whatever time you want. So you pop in, you know, we don't go into 8-minute commercial breaks or anything like that. We just pop in and get it going, man. Thank you, my brother, for joining us. Good afternoon, my friend.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. I usually like to be early just to make sure everything's working. I like that music is my vaccine. The extra 5 minutes, we could talk about Zeppelin before we get into the NFL draft, if you like.
Oh, of course. We can always talk Zepp. You know what I'm saying? But let me ask you something. I don't talk new rock enough with you. What is good new rock for Tony Pauline? Rival Sons? What do you listen to nowadays? I know you're a huge Zepp guy and a classic rock. So am I. Is there anything new you gravitate to?
No. I mean, no, I don't. You know, all the stations are classic rock stations, and you know, I still have a car that has a CD player. So I mean, I'm always slipping the song remains the same, and you know, I go in. It's either Presence, Physical Graffiti. The song remains the same. I do like the Moody Blues. I listen to the Moody Blues a lot. I also listen to like Sade and Anita Baker, things like that a lot. But you know, what do you find? I mean, you got to make it easy for you, or at least easy for me. You know, put on the radio station. Oh, I like that song. I like that group. You know, go buy the music or whatever. You know, when I'm in front of my computer, I'm doing rankings or watching film or things like that, not listening to music. Sorry.
No, yeah, I get it. I get it. By the way, does it piss you off a little bit that Plant is kind of snobbish about, like, he's kind of like anti-Zepp?
Yeah.
He's so into, you know, with Allison and all the bluegrass and fine, dude, you're doing terrific, but brother, he doesn't even do his solo shit, which his early solo shit, I love. Burning Down One Side, Little by Little.
Pictures at 11.
Yeah, Pictures at 11 now and Zen. Yeah. Oh, man, I saw all those tours.
So did I.
Saw the first 4 tours. Hell, I went and I saw Page and Plant in 1990 in the arena. But doesn't it piss you off a little bit that he kind of like, you know, it's kind of like he almost acts like it's beneath him nowadays, which like, I don't get that, dude.
He makes a lot of condescending comments towards Led Zeppelin, which is very, very annoying. It's you know, and listen, it's funny because I tweeted out over the summer, I did an interview with a Zepp site, a memorabilia site about seeing Zeppelin in 1977, being at the Live Aid reunion, being at the Atlantic Records reunion. I was at all those reunions. I saw Zeppelin 77. And the guy asked me, you know, and I said to him, I said, you know, Plant was always my guy in the band. When I was growing up, it was his posters that were the most posters on my wall. I had Zeppelin, yes, Genesis, but it was Plant. I said, up until about 5 years ago, and he said, what happened? I said, you know, I just got sick and tired of all the condescending comments Plant made about Zeppelin, about the Zeppelin music. I understand why he left. I understand, you know, what happened. It would be great for them to get back, but, you know, Plant in a 3-year period, he lost his 5-year-old son while they were on tour in the United States. Then he loses his best friend, John Bonham. So I understand that. But the fact is this: if it wasn't for Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant is a nice warm-up band. I mean, no, Robert Plant's not getting the same adoration. He's not getting getting hooked up with these, you know, Alison Krauss or whatever. No one's going after Robert Plant, or people are going after Robert Plant to pair him up with Alison Krauss, as much of the fact that he was the lead singer of the greatest rock and roll band that we will ever know, beside his talent. I mean, let's be honest about it. And he just seems, like you said, it's like beneath him these days, but it's actually what made Robert Plant.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I saw him with the Shapeshifters out in the Greek Theater in Los Angeles, like, I don't know, it was like maybe 8-10 years ago. And, you know, he did a couple of Zeppelin songs.
Right.
But it's like most of it was Shapeshifters. And I'm like, yo, dude.
Space Shifters, right.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, Space Shifters, right? Okay, whatever. And it's like, yo, dude, come on, bro. This is not what you're known for, man.
You know, it's funny because I saw, you know, you mentioned the early tours. I saw Robert Plant the first time he toured. I followed him up and down the East Coast in 1983. And from 1983 to 2015, if Robert Plant was in New York City playing, I was there. Oh, yeah. And then the stuff just kind of got to be, to me, a bit unlistenable. And the funny thing is, you mentioned he didn't start doing, I saw him in 83, he didn't start doing Zeppelin songs until like the '88 tour. And what happens is if you go to a Robert Plant concert, whether it's with the Space Shifters, Band of Joy, Alzugaray, whenever they do a Led Zeppelin song, the temperature in the room goes up about 50 degrees. That's when people. Last time I saw him was 2016, and he did. Didn't do Ramble On. He did What Is and What Should Never Be. He did Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, and this was at a small theater in Port Chester, New York, and the crowd went berserk when he did those songs.
Of course, dude. I just don't understand him nowadays. He pisses me off, quite frankly. Yeah. He pisses me off because you're shitting on one of the greatest music acts in the history of all music. They're right up. It's like the Beatles. It's Led Zeppelin. It's Jimi Hendrix. It's Aretha. It's James Brown. It's like there's only a group of there's only a couple of you. And Zepp's one of them, bro. And like
Zepp is the main one. And it's not, listen, I don't think he understands what it means to a lot of people. But I mean, you travel around the nation, they have Get the Lead Out, Zepp, September is you go around the nation and it's, and Zeppelin, is on a par with anything that's come out the past 30 years. Listen, my New York State license plate is LDZEPLIN. So that's my New York State license plate. So I just don't think it was a tough time. I understand in his life, especially at the end there with what went on. Yeah. But it's what made Robert Plant.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah, man. I'm just glad I was able to, at least I didn't get to see Zepp. I saw him solo and I saw Plant and Page at least. I'm grateful for that because at least the Plant and Page tour, that was satisfactory for me, at least. That was actually really cool to be able to see that.
Well, the second one, the first one with the Egyptians, with the Egyptian musicians, that was nice because they were back, but it really wasn't, all that, whatever it was. It was nice to see them back, but when that second tour, what it was 98, I think it was. The first tour was 95, 98 or whatever, is when they really started to, you got that Zeppelin feel to it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. At least I got to see that. I just never got to see like you did in '77. My God, that would have been. I would have seen it in the In Through the Outdoor tour. That did not happen.
Right.
That's where I was hoping that's the tour that I was going to see them for the first time ever, because I was old enough and I could talk my mom into going to that thing finally, because I had just gone to a Boston concert recently, which it's funny. That's what I'm wearing right now.
There you go.
That was one of my first that's not the shirt, of course, but
it's kind of funny you say that, because I will never. I mean, I saw Zeppelin opening night at the Garden, June 7th, 1977, and I have so many memories about it. So many memories, and one of the memories is, I go and I'm wearing a hockey jersey, figure I'm going to be cool. I was 12 years old at the time. I mean, and I sit next to some guy who looks like Joey Ramone, and we start talking. And at that point in time, I had been to a lot of concerts in Central Parks. People may not even know the Schaefer Central Park Music Festival, Dr. Pepper Central Park Music Festival. Talking to this guy next to me, and he told me that he had seen Boston like a month or so before at the Garden in like May of 1977. But Boston only had one album at the time. Right. And I'll never forget the story. He told me how they played the one album, they played for 45 minutes, and then they left. And the crowd went nuts. They started throwing chairs on the stage. They started going absolutely crazy. So it's funny you mentioned Boston and how it intertwines with my Zeppelin experience.
Yeah, exactly. And man, they used to frustrate. I love Boston, but they used to frustrate because Tom would take forever to take out a damn album, bro. It was just crazy. All right, let's get to some football talk. When you're the Dolphins at the spot you're at 21. You could easily trade down and all that, but they have so many needs along the O or D line. Tony, this almost looks like the perfect storm for them. It just seems like there's a lot of names that they could use. Talk to us a little bit about the O or D line guys that you think will be flirting with 21.
Well, I don't know that it's easy to trade down, because in order for you to trade down, someone's going to have to want to trade up. And, sometimes it's maybe if one of the cornerbacks is there, it'll be easy for them to trade down. for a team that wants to hop in front of the Philadelphia Eagles to draft the cornerback. But, you know, offensive line, you're obviously looking at the interior offensive line. The big name right now, or the hot name right now, is Graham Barton out of Duke, college tackle who projects to guard, had a significant injury. He's over that injury, had a great pro day. People absolutely love him. He's going to go much higher than people believe he's going to go. I think that the Dolphins like him, but I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to swipe him off the board before the Dolphins are even called to the clock. Then the next name that pops up is Jackson Powers Johnson. And Jackson Powers Johnson, from Oregon, there's a variety of opinion about him around the league. Played offensive guard in 2000, right guard 2022 at Oregon, was a terrific player, moved to center this year, had a real good year at center, went to the Senior Bowl. He was injured, played the first day at the Senior Bowl, and he was dynamite. Now, talked to people literally the past couple of weeks. They said Jackson Powers Johnson, in some instances, have rubbed people the wrong way during interviews. And there are other people who say that Jackson Powers Johnson was overrated to begin with. He wasn't a first-round pick. It's not an opinion I share. I still have Jackson Powers Johnson rated as my number one offensive center, ahead of Graham Barton of Duke. But we'll see how it shakes out on on draft day. That's why you have surprises in the draft, because not everybody agrees. So I think Jackson Powers Johnson has kind of slipped a little bit as compared to where we thought he was just a couple of months ago. You go to the defensive line, Byron Murphy. I know a lot of people talk about Byron Murphy of Texas. He's not going to be there. Byron Murphy, the Seattle Seahawks may take him at 16. He could be gone before the Seahawks are even called to the clock. So the question is, if you're the Dolphins and Graham Barton isn't there, and you don't like Jackson Powers Johnson, you mentioned trading down, do you take a defensive lineman? Do you take a Zerhan Newton, or Johnny Newton from Illinois? I happen to like Newton. I know he's been injured in the run-up to the draft, but you watch his tape the last 2 years, it was really good. He's an explosive one-gap guy, would be a good replacement for Christian Wilkinson. He's a guy who, when you watch the film, even when the outcome of the game was well-known and Illinois was going to lose, he's still playing hard. Now, the thing about Newton is he's 6'1.5", 300 pounds. He's not, how much bigger is he going to get? Is he more than just a one-gap, three technique type of tackle? I believe he was, because Illinois employed a three-man line there. So I think that is someone they would have to consider. I know people say, well, you look at mock drafts, sometimes he's not even in the first round of mock draft. Big deal. He's a productive defensive tackle, and defensive tackles are always a priority come draft day. That's why Byron Murphy's going to go a little bit earlier than people, or should a lot earlier than people think. That's why, Marshawn Nealon is getting all this late love. Speaking of Marshawn Nealon, would they go edge rusher? If they don't like any of this, if Graham Barton's not there, they're not sold on Jackson Powers Johnson. They think that, the 21st pick is too early for Zerhan Newton of Illinois. Do they take one of the pass rushers that's available? If Latu Latu of UCLA gets past the Rams and he's staring the Dolphins in the face, do they take him?
Last to 21. That's the guy I want, bro. That's the guy, because Jared Verse ain't going to last. He's not going to be there, right? Jared Verse.
On my board, no. But the other guy would be, Chop Robinson. If Chop Robinson's there, my order for the pass rushers is Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Chop Robinson, and Latu. Latu's got the medicals. I am big on Chop Robinson. I know I've spoken to some people that say that Jared Verse is the fourth edge rusher on their board. Chop Robinson is the guy who is getting, in some people's minds, he's very underrated, and he's the number 2 guy after Dallas Turner. It's 6 1/2 dozen. Latu's an interesting story. He was a guy who he's got an injury history. He was basically told by Washington, we're going to medically retire you. Then he transferred to UCLA, and he's lit the world on fire the past 2 years. So, number one, he's got to pass the medicals, and I'm told that he has passed most medicals. I know of 2 teams that have said we wouldn't draft him based on the medicals, but they don't need pass rushers. And then he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to build upon what he's shown the past 2 years.
Okay, so let me ask you, Tyler Guyton, not mentioned there. You don't buy him at 21?
from a point of view of talent and ability, absolutely. But the fact is Tyler Guyton was a guy who never played up to his level of ability on a consistent basis. He lost the starting left tackle job at Oklahoma, was pushed over to right tackle. He's a guy who is known to play in spurts. If Tyler Guyton played to his level of ability on an every down basis, Tyler Guyton would have been a top 12 pick. There are people coming out of Oklahoma during the season, area scouts, who like him as a top 10 pick. But he's going to fall probably to the bottom half of round one because, he applies himself on occasion. Who was the defensive tackle that Jimmy Johnson drafted out of Baylor about 20 years ago when he was at the Dolphins?
Daryl Gardner.
There you go. He's a Daryl Gardner type in the sense that he's got all the ability in the world, but, he needs somebody to give him a good boot in the rear end.
Yeah. Dude, there were moments that Daryl Gardner just shut shit down, bro. Like, he changed the world. And then there were moments where he just completely disappeared. It was the weirdest thing. And I've never seen anybody built like him, too. He was built like a defensive end playing tackle. He didn't have any fat on his body. Man, that guy was a freak.
But what you said was how a streakiness about how, sometimes he looks like a world beater, other times he looks like an egg beater. That's Tyler Guyton. If Tyler Guyton played to his level of ability, to the expectations that scouts have him, to his athleticism, Tyler Guyton is a top 12 pick in this year's draft.
All right, so they have a first and a second, no third and fourth. So the way I'm looking at this draft, you talked about the pass rushers. They might have an opportunity to get a pass rusher. Now, in that second round, there are guys like Chris Jenkins, Mason Smith, Rook, whatever the hell. I really like the kid from Clemson. I don't know what his name, but that's one of the guys I actually like at that spot. It almost feels like in that second round, there are some defensive tackles. There's also a couple of offensive linemen that will fall there. Talk to me about those kind of players, even maybe an outside linebacker that you might like in that second round.
I also like, I like Dwayne Carter of Duke. We talked about Graham Barton, the center. I have Dwayne Carter graded higher than most people. He's a guy who's very explosive, plays with great leverage. Not the biggest guy in the world, but again, if you watch this, if you were at Senior Bowl practices, he dominated. Rook from Clemson, I agree with you. I mean, I have him as a late second, early third round pick. He's got terrific size. He's got growth potential. He's very athletic. Ironically, he's from the same school of the player that they just lost, Clemson. Yep. Does have a slight bit of a medical issue, which I know some teams have flagged him on. Some teams are fine with. So again, depends on what the Dolphins think of the medical issue with Rheaume. It's not a major one, but it's something that, some teams are slightly concerned about. I think he's got great upside.
What's the medical issue? What's the medical issue?
Yeah, they didn't go into. I mean, I've confirmed it, but this is the day and age of HIPAA. So, again, it's medical issues in the NFL.
We're good.
Some teams will say we're not going to draft this guy. There's no way. Go back to Latu. I mean, there are some teams that will not draft Latu because of the medicals, and other teams say, it's fine. We're okay with it. That's the situation with Rheaume. You mentioned Mason Smith. I'm not a big fan of Mason Smith. Mason Smith is maybe best way to put it is he is the defensive equivalent of Tyler Guyton. He is a guy who had a great freshman year at LSU, then got injured. And if you watch the tape this year, very streaky. I mean, there are times where he's dominant. He makes a lot of explosive plays, but there are times where he's being handled at the point by a single blocker, and he looks like he'd rather be out fishing than rather on the football field. When you talk about second round defensive, offensive linemen, I mean, if you're looking at an interior guy, obviously if Zach Frazier of West Virginia's there, I think that would be a real good fit. Christian Haynes, although he's more of a guard, he's more of a power gap guard. I don't know that he's a good fit for the system, although while I say he's a power gap guard, he tested incredibly well at the combine. He looked really fluid and moved well during position drills. So that's another guy that you got to look at if you're looking at interior offensive linemen in the second round of the draft.
Cooper Beebe, you a fan?
I love Cooper Beebe on film. He's a masher. He is a dominant run blocker. He is someone who, looks to bury opponent. Cooper Beebe has the fire that Tyler Guyton needs. If you could put BB's intensity into Tyler Guyton, you got a top 5 pick. The problem with BB is short arms, 31-inch arms, and he only did 20 reps on the bench press, which, people are going to say, again, you got the film with Cooper Beebe, which screams early second-round pick, and you got a guy with short arms who only did 20 reps on the bench. Make of it what you will, but that would be a red flag for some teams. I think I have Beebe as a late second, early third-round choice.
Well, that's what I was thinking. He's really more of a guard than a tackle, even though he's played tackle.
He's pure guard. He's pure guard.
But is he athletic enough for the outside zone scheme? What would you say about that?
Yeah, no, I would say no. I think he's more of a power gap guy. If you're looking for that athletic guy, you're absolutely looking at Zach Frazier in round 2. Maybe Christian Haynes. Christian Haynes didn't show that athleticism on the field at UConn, basically because they didn't need him to, because he mashed people. But again, you go back to his combine numbers. I think he ran a 5.04 in the 40, and then he moved exceptionally well during drills. I mean, looked really good moving around the field in drills.
Brandon Dorian, smallish. Are you a fan of him?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Brandon Dorian, are you a fan of him, or is he a little smallish for you?
Brandon Dorian?
Yeah, the Oregon kid.
Oh, Brandon Dorless, the defensive tackle. Okay. Now, yeah, he's a smaller one gap guy, type of defensive tackle who makes plays. They played more of a 3-man line there. He got caught up in the wash at times. He's more of a first step sort of lineman who's got some growth potential. Not the biggest guy in the world, not the strongest guy in the world, but I think he'd be real good on the inside of a 4-man line, like his upside.
All right, so what's going to happen at the top? How many quarterbacks are going to go?
I mean, there's going to be 4 quarterbacks. It's just a matter of are they taking the first 4 picks? Are they taking the first 5 picks? Are they taking the first 6 picks? So I think there's going to be 4 quarterbacks that are gone at the latest in the top 6 picks. I think Penix could very easily be selected much earlier than people think, in the middle part of round 1. I don't think Bo Nix is a first-round pick. I don't think Bo Nix should be a first-round pick. I think the only way Bo Nix is a first-round pick is if Denver can't move up and get their quarterback, and then they move down, grab some extra selections, and then take Bo Nix.
Are you a J.J. McCarthy believer?
No. I mean, I have my concerns about him. Again, let's go back. You talk about Tyler Guyton and break him up. When I watch the film, I got to say no about J.J. McCarthy. I mean, he doesn't have great pocket stature, although he measured in at 6'2", 219 pounds at the combine. He doesn't show great arm strength. And my concern with J.J. McCarthy is I'm not concerned with the fact that he only threw the ball 16 times a game. They didn't name him to throw the ball anymore. I'm concerned that I don't see great arm strength, and I see a guy who, he makes some questionable passes on Saturday, which will be interceptions on Sunday. Now, that being the case, I mean, he's got great confidence. He's a tremendous leader. He's got great moxie. That has all basically come across in interviews, which is why teams love him. If you read the story I wrote last week about some of the quarterbacks, I mentioned how when he was helping Michigan recruit football players, he would tell the players, listen, if you're here and you want to, if you're coming to college because you want to party and have a good time, go elsewhere. If you want to win a national championship, then you come here, which is heady stuff. I mean, that's the kind of leader you want. People talk about the national championship, did a lot of winning, beat the pants out of Ohio State 3 years in a row, and that is a huge rivalry, bigger than what most people think. So I think with McCarthy is if you draft him, you give him time, you continue to develop his arm strength, I think he could be a very good NFL quarterback, very good NFL starting quarterback. I think McCarthy, like Penix, like Bo Nix, is part of the situation that we've seen in the draft the past 20, 25 years, and that quarterbacks are always overdrafted. They're always given an extra half a round or a round to their grades because of the positional priority.
By the way, on the chat board, they're asking, I already know the answer because you and I already talked about it a couple of years ago. They're asking that if you like Greta Van Fleet, and I know you don't.
I don't know. I've listened to them lately. They're okay. They're okay. I actually listened to that song. There was a song that was being promoted with the movie Ford versus Ferrari, and I've listened to them. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. They just never really took the next step. You know, it's just
the new album is not Zeppelin-like.
Okay.
I know the early stuff was very influential Zeppelin-like, and by the way, the guitarist is very good. You got to listen.
The bass player's outstanding as well.
Player is excellent too. They're actually very good musicians because they're actually old school bred. If you listen to them talk about music, all they talk about are the classics. That's all they talk about. They're like heavily influenced. Their dad is a classic rock guy and a musician himself. So he taught them and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where they got it from. But so they've grown on you is what it's out. Because a couple of years ago, you were like, no, they're just a clone.
Yeah,
like, no,
exactly.
they're really good. They're you can sound like a band, but you still have to create the music.
Yeah.
And they're good, But
so, yeah, some of their stuff, I dodge around YouTube and pull up some of their stuff. And my wife gets crazy because I blare the speakers. I blare the music down here. So
good shit. All right, man. What do you got going on the Sportskeeda so everybody can check you out, my friend?
Well, I mean, it's draft week, so all the news and rumors. There was one article posted just a few hours ago. We'll have another article tomorrow. Wednesday, I'm sure we'll have another article Thursday and Friday. So all the news and rumors. I'll have a final mock draft up Wednesday morning. And who else knows what's going to happen between now and draft weekend?
It's Christmas in the NFL, my friend. I appreciate you taking some time. We will catch up again down the line. Thank you for taking some time, Tony.
Thanks for having me, man.
You got it, my brother. Appreciate it. There we go. Led Zeppelin and football. You can't beat that. There you go. Tony Pauline, sportskeeda.com. Make sure you check him out. That's one of my sites that I have bookmarked nowadays. Sportskeeda. He does excellent work.